don't want to talk much about that yet. This is the state constitution, so-called. It has 37 missing parts at federation. It is not the constitution that it should be. There's an Imperial Act and Letters Patent put in the Constitution of the State of Western Australia in 1900, issued by Queen Victoria. Now that has the extra 31 sections that are missing out of this. Mr. John Forrest decided he would remove all the sections that affected his government. But he come unstuck because this is the proper constitution. It is not junk, it is easy to understand. I mean, I say that because I've been in law a long time, but the fact of the matter is it's written so you can understand it. This is backed up by the common law. And I'm not religious, this is the common law. The King James Version of the Bible was put in place in 1614 with the Imperial Act and Letters Patent as the common law of the people. The only reason I've got this now is because if you want to understand this, the quickest way to understand it is to read this. You don't have to be religious. You read this, you understand this, which is very easy. This is dead set simple. Because like this, we are totally free. What that means, if you drive or walk down the street, you are not subject to any single law unless you break one. And then you are subject to that law and that law only. You cannot be held accountable. Like, the police cannot pull you over for a random breath test. There is no such lawful thing as a random breath test. They are depriving you of your liberty. Then they poke something in your face and say, blow in this because you're drunk and prove you're sober. That's exactly what they're saying. If you want proof of that, refuse to take it. They lock you up for being drunk. So what are they saying? You're drunk. Now to get off the police, because they're not very nice people, even though I was one, look at your local government. Local Government Act was added to the state constitution with number 88 in 1979. It's an act of the State Parliament of Western Australia. It was done without a referendum, and a referendum is required under section 123 of the Federal Constitution. It states to increase or decrease the authority of the Parliament of a state. It requires a referendum in that state. For the state to set up a local government in the way that they did, they've increased their power because they've taken possession and authority over your land. In 1988, when we had a referendum, the people voted no. In every state in Australia, 66.42% of Australians voted no to local government. No to the establishment of local government, no to the continuance of local government, no to the empowering of local government, and no to local government making bylaws. They were the four sections of the referendum. The referendum was to add section 119A to the Federal Constitution. In Western Australia, 70.24% of the people said no, we do not want local government. But Bob Hawke, in his wisdom, decided we were having it anyway, so they put it in place. Now, what local government, according to them, has, under their act, they own your property. You can't build a house on it, you can't put a fence up, you can't clear it, you can't do anything on it without a permit from them. So they say. I went to see them about 8 years ago when I bought my property, and I wanted to build a 10 metre wide, 15 metre long, 5 metre high shed and build a double-storey house inside it with a balcony either end and a veranda each side. I put in the plans, being a good little citizen, not. And I was going to pay them some money. I said, no, I'll see what you're going to do and then see what happens. So next I got the plans back and they said, you can build your house, your shed, but you can't have verandas, it has to be 4.5 metres high, you can't live in it, and you can't have any balconies back and front. And you must put a caveat on your property to say that you will remove the shed if you subdivide it. So I said, well, you've approved the shed. He said, yes, on those conditions. I said, well, I own the property, you don't. They said, well, you can't build a shed. I said, well, I'm going to anyway, and I did. And I built it 5 metres high, and I built the verandas and the balconies and everything else, and we built it out as a house, my wife and I. Next thing, we got a summons to go to court because we told them we're not paying their rates, they can shove them. They're their rates, not ours. And the magistrate's court is a joke. You go in there, the magistrate says, oh, well, the government passed the act, you have to pay it. And that's all there is to it. And I said, well, I'm not going to take that, so I went to the district court, and then we ended up in the Supreme Court before a single judge, and Mr McKechnie, and he's a peanut, and he said, no, they don't have a case, so we'll throw it out. I went before the full bench of the Supreme Court, and then Christine Wheeler, Paulin and Buzz, the 3 judges, ruled that rates are a tax and can be collected by a public authority for a public purpose. And that's an eye-opener, because when you set up the local government and you read their act, under 2.5 of their act, they have to be set up as a body corporate. Subsection 3 of that section states they must be done as a natural person. Now, the councils in Western Australia are not set up as corporations, they're set up as companies. And they have an ABN, they don't have an ACN. They send out a tax invoice, rate notice. If you read your rate notice, that's exactly what it says. But that's where they come unstuck. Number one, their act says they have to be a body corporate. Now, if you remember what I said about the referendum, the referendum denied them the authority to exist at all. Now, Wheeler and Pullen and Buzz ruled that the referendum was at federal level and didn't affect state legislation at all. It was a load of crap, but you don't argue with them, you just go back and go around and fix them up a different way. So I went back to court again, and I said, they're a body corporate, trading as a company, they're not registered with ASIC, so they're committing a fraud under section 53, subsection 4 of the Trade Practices Act, because they're trading as a corporation while not duly registered. Now they said, well, we don't have to register. Well, section 5 of the Federal Corporations Act of 2001 says they do. At least municipalities and all government departments must register with ASIC. And they said, oh, well, we're not subject to that. Well, 109 of the Constitution overrides any state law that interferes with the federal law. So they do. So the paper I sent around to a few people so they could understand it, your councils are trading as companies. They should be trading as a corporation. They claim to be a corporation, but to trade as a corporation they must register with ASIC. Now the problem with registering with ASIC, they move into federal legislative authority. Under section 51 subsection 20 of the Constitution, it says companies formed under state legislation once formed come under federal legislative authority. That's why they're in section 5 of the Federal Corporations Act of 2001. They must register, and they're not. So the first problem they got, they're all committing fraud on you and everybody else because they're trading as a corporation. The second problem they have is they have no authority over your land unless you grant it to them. Because all your land, if you look at your title deeds, it states this is an estate in fee simple. Fee simple alienates your land from the Crown. Because it is a contract between yourself and the reigning monarch in ownership of that land. And it says the only thing the Crown has access to is the minerals that are under your land. They do not have access to your land. So the government can't tax your land. Now, they claim they can, so we went back and had another argument with the Attorney General, and we discovered that in section 51 of the Constitution, once the federal government taxes a certain area, being the land, and they started taxing it in 1910, right through to 1953. Then they decided they didn't want to tax it anymore. But because they took up that tax avenue, it barred the states automatically from ever taxing land. under section 52 of the Constitution. It bars them. Where the federal government taxes an area, it bars the state from ever doing it. Because the federal government have now abandoned that, there is no authority under the Constitution for them to go back and charge you a tax on your land. So all land tax rates and everything else on your land is invalid. You think if you went before the court's going to say, oh yeah, good boy, it's all in the legislature, we're going to do it. Not likely. The courts are supposed to be there for you, but they're not. And never think they are, because they certainly are not. If you go before a court, you're banging your head against the wall. None of yous here, I wouldn't recommend any of you go before the court single, but as a group, you can. You cannot use a normal, everyday lawyer because they aren't normal in the head. They're all got the mindset of the government because they were under the Acts Amendment and Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act, Section 5, they were made officers of the court, which is actual treason. Because a lawyer can't be an officer of the court. Just like a cop can't be an officer of the court. It's an impossibility. Total impossibility. So what we've really got is a group of people taxing our land, claiming to do all this work for us, provide all these services for us, and they're actually providing zero. When a developer takes a parcel of land and divides it up, he grants to the government the area of land for roads, area of land for parks, area of lands for future shops, if it's been zoned for that. Then the developer puts in the roads, the footpaths, the power, the water, the gas, all your phone lines, all the amenities, and pays $7,000 to $9,000 a block goodwill to the council for future work on those blocks. The council should then put that aside to do the work, if they were a legitimate body, but they're not. If you look in the paper recently, they lost millions of dollars on the stock exchange because they were playing with it where they shouldn't have been playing with it. That is our money. Well, it's not mine because I never donated to them yet, nor am I going to. But the issue is, everything the council claims to do, the developer did. When you buy the block of land, you pay for it. You actually own your block of land right smack to the centre of the road. But from your front fence to the centre of the road is deemed to be public open space. That public open space belongs to the Crown, does not belong to the government and does not belong to the council. The parks that you paid for belong to the Crown, not the government, not the council. The council claims them, oh, we've got to do this work on it. They've already been paid by the developer to develop that park. But they want to hoist your rates up to pay for that park. Why do we do it? Because we're deemed to be a pack of sheep. The government says jump, you say how high, and what else do you want me to do? And people do it. I know it's a difficult thing for people to turn and say to the council, get off my property. The last time they come on my property, which was 4.5 years ago, I put the root bar of my F250 four-wheel drive against the back of their Commodore Ute and pushed it down a 200-metre long gravel drive out into the middle of the road. They rung the cops rung me up, and I said, I told them to get off my property, they refused, so I used reasonable force. I just crap off my property, and that's where it belongs. Off the property. Tell them not to come back or I'll break their legs. You can't do that. I said, you don't want me to break their legs, tell them not to come back. It's a simple thing. It's my property. I paid for it. People have to wake up. This piece of land is your whole life. You work your guts out all your life to buy your piece of land. But you don't own it. Because some noodle brain sitting in Parliament thinks, these people are not going to have this. We're going to get it back off them. They legislate through the Local Government Act. They've got all these claims over your land. Go and build a house and see what the Water Corporation's got over your land. There's 37 things you've got to comply with just for the Water Corporation. Then they want you to select an area where they can put their sewage. Their sewage. You do not have to pay for sewage. The High Court ruled in the Met Worley case Metwalli versus the Wollongong Shire in 1992. You don't have to have any service you don't want or need, nor do you have to pay for it. I've got 66,000 gallons of rainwater. I've got 11,000 gallon rainwater tanks, and I've got a bore and another tank. My argument with the Water Corporation was they had a rusty old standpipe on my property. They wanted $250 to remove it. They wanted $500 to put another one on, then they wanted $180 to put a metre on. I said, well, you're supplying a service, where's the service? You want me to pay for all of this? Well, too bad. And I said, well, too bad on you, get your crap off my property. I'm not going to do it. So I sent them a bill, $50 a week rent for their pipe being on my property, because they just ignored it. After 12 months, I sent them another one, giving them 7 days to remove it. After 7 days, I sent them 24 hours, and they didn't do it. So my four-wheel drive came in handy again. I backed up to it, put a chain around, pulled it out of the ground. And then I ended up with a 30-foot water spout. And believe me, I did it. They turned up with the police, and they wanted to take me away, and I said, well, you can't, because this is a corporation. This is a civil matter. They had their property on mine, I just removed it. And the cop says, I'm not getting involved in this thing. His car took off. And the Water Corporation said, we're going to see us. Be my guest. So I got a summons back to court for about the 15th time with these government departments. And I pleaded not guilty and got it moved from Perth, because they conveniently have it in Perth. I mean, the Water Corporation's in Geraldton, where I live. And I live in Geraldton, so obviously you would think it would go to the Geraldton court. But the Water Corporation and all the other departments, they put it into Perth. Same as the councils from Geraldton, put it in Fremantle Court. What the hell do you want it in Fremantle? You live in Geraldton. The council's in Geraldton. But this is what they pulled. So anyway, I pleaded not guilty and asked for it to go to trial. They had to submit their submissions. They put about 114 different submissions. I put 28 sections of the Constitution. They removed it. So I filled out a statement of claim. They removed the case from the court. I filled out a statement of claim, and I got $25,000 in costs for inconvenience and all the rest of the things they caused me to do with their little garbage they pulled on me with their little writ. Last week the council pulled the same thing. Last Friday they withdrew their current summons to the court, which has sat there for 2 years and destroyed my credit rating for 2 years. So I went to the court and said, well, you've just withdrawn this application for this case to go to trial in this court. And he said, yes. I said, but it's signed civic legal. He said, yeah. I said, well, the cable decision in the High Court, CLR 189 of 96, states you've got to sign that with a lawful signature of a flesh and blood person. I said, who's civic legal? He said, I don't know. So I pulled out my phone and dialed their number, and I said, ask them. I said, ask them to talk to Mr. Civic Legal. And the girl said, there's no one of that name here. This was on the speaker. And I said, well, that's correct. So who withdrew this case out of the court? So it's still sitting here, isn't it? And he said, yeah. I said to Steve, the registrar there, give me the documents. I want to submit an application. He said, what for? I said, $1.5 million damages, plus unspecified damages for what they've done to me over the years. He said, this will have to go to the Supreme Court. I said, no. It's going from here, federal court, straight into the High Court. That is your rights under the Constitution to do that. Don't ever back away. If you stop these utilities serving you, because that's all they are, if you stop them suing you, go after them. Get your cost. It costs next to nothing to do it. $147 to put a writ into the local court, $340 in the district, $16.50 into the Supreme Court, and $14.70 into the High Court. It rolls off my tongue a bit, but I have to sell a bit of machinery to afford it. But it's worth doing, because they're your rights. You have a constitution which gives you more rights than anyone else. The highest authority in this country is in here. It's you. Each and every one of you is the highest authority in this country. Page 230 in here, in Comments on the Contrary by Clark, one of the people who wrote the Constitution, he states, if it was asked by a politician what's the highest authority in this country, he'd say the state constitution. He said it leads near to the truth, but it doesn't reach it, because the highest authority is the people and their sovereignty over everything in this country. If you go on the Hansard of 1898, so available on the net, you can access it. Hansard is a record of the Federal Parliament, or the Parliament at that time. And you find out just who owns the country. Because Justice Isaacs and Griffiths, two more of the people who wrote it, along with Parkes and all the rest of them, stated quite clearly that at Federation, sovereignty was removed from the Parliament and vested solely in the people. Because this is more than just an act of the British Parliament, which it is actually not. It's claimed to be an act of the British Parliament. The first 9 sections were inserted by the British Parliament. The rest was put together by Australians, for Australians. It was put in place with the Imperial Act and Letters Patent. I say this because I've got a copy of it. You can access it through the State Library. You can go in there, you can access the Imperial Act and Letters Patent putting in the Office of Governor, the State Electoral Act, the Federal Constitution and the State Constitution. They're all there. It cost, I think, about $17, $18. I told you I got a copy of all of them for $17 or $18. There's nothing to it. This, however, is $275 and you can get it through Upmart in Victoria. If you want the PO box, it's 124 Elwood, Victoria. Just write them a letter, send them $300, they send you this back plus your change. You've got to pay for the freight. It's well worth getting if you get stuck reading it. I'm always on the phone and anybody can get me. I have no problem giving you all the sections to reference. But that's your best armour against the councils. We are going to have another federal referendum in relation to councils. The red-headed female of sorts is going to give us that, apparently. But the fact of the matter is, everybody just has to say no. But all you have to do now is join in a group, get a large group together, turn up the next council meeting and sack them. If they're a government, you have the right to sack them. All you need is 7 or more.
Wow.
But you're better off with a larger group, like 50 or 60 going in there, and saying, you're fired. You have no authority over our property. Then you'll find out actually who owns the council. You will find out then, in 1986, the Commonwealth of Australia was established as a corporation and registered on the US Securities Exchange Commission. The registration number is 0000805157. And underneath that it has Commonwealth of Australia Securities Company, LLC Company, which is a limited liability company, registered in Delaware, a tax haven. And when you poke into that, which takes about 2 hours of messing around with the computer, and I've got a friend who likes poking around in that, we come up with 3 $6 trillion accounts. Now who the hell owns that? That's our money. What's it doing hidden in Delaware in a secret account? You can access this on the computer. I'm not saying anything you can't access. The government is not only lying to you, they're ripping you off. But the Commonwealth of Australia owns the state parliaments of every state, and they control them. The state parliaments of every state have an ABN number. They are a subsidiary company of the Commonwealth of Australia Proprietary Limited. Each government department is a sub-company of those. The Supreme Court of Western Australia, or the Department of the Attorney General, which encompasses all the courts, the State Solicitor's Office and the Attorney General, is a company. They are not corporations, they are companies. They have an ABN number, not an ACN number. You want to find out who the directors are of the company? The Prime Minister is, for all purposes, the President of the company of the Corporation of Australia. Doesn't own it. It's owned by the Roman Catholic Church, the United Nations and the World Bank. Owns Australia. Who gave it to them? We didn't. The government did. They're not a government, they're actually a parliament. If you go into chapter 3, section 71 of the Constitution, it explains exactly what government is. It has 3 tiers. And local government is not one of them. The government is the governor and the executive council, which he selects from both houses of parliament, 10 people from each. It's in the Constitution and it's in the Imperial Act and Letters Patent putting his position in place. He is actually the executive government for the state of Western Australia, is the governor. The upper and lower house of the state parliament are a legislature. They only have the authority under Section 2 of the state constitution, subsection 1, to pass laws for the good government and well-being of the state of Western Australia. They are trying to say they have plenary power and they are sovereign, but they are not. The third tier of government is the judiciary. The judiciary is made up of the courts, which belong to us, the judges, which are our servants, and the people, which is us, the sovereign people of Australia. We're the judiciary. Now, interesting thing, and I'm not going to go too far into courts because it gets too deep. We have for 12 years argued in the courts here, 12 to 14 years, and Josh will tell you, and so can Nick, I have literal stand-up arguments with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I did prove on the 15th of February this year that he swore an oath of allegiance to the state, which is an unlawful entity. It's actually a criminal offence under the State Criminal Code. It's also common law treason under Section 80, subsection 5 of the Federal Criminal Code. It's also treachery to alter the Constitution under Section 24AA of the Federal Crimes Act. Every single one of those penalties is life imprisonment. And I threw that in his face. Got him a little upset, as you can understand, but to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Western Australia, as I informed him, you must swear an oath of allegiance to the Crown of the United Kingdom in right as a people. And that's in the third schedule to the Federal Constitution. Since then, which was in the first time I threw it in his face, or not his face, was into the Supreme Court, was in 2006. Since then, the High Court has ruled in Lane versus Morrison that every court in this country must sit under Chapter 3 of the Constitution. Chapter 3 requires an oath of allegiance to the Crown. The Crown is not the Queen. The Crown is our system of law. The Queen is a monarch. She is not even our Queen in actual right. She's the Queen of England and of Northern Ireland. We are actually all British subjects, whether we like it or not. You read your Constitution, you find out you are. There is no such thing as citizenship in Australia. These swearing in citizens is swearing in nothing. Because if you look at the Constitution, you were sworn in as a British subject. Because Australia, even as a Commonwealth, is still a colony of England. We went from 7 separate colonies to one single colony called the Commonwealth of Australia. That's why this is a contract between us, the people, and the Crown. A contract the Crown can't break. The only one can break it is us. That's why the government keeps pushing for a referendum for a republic. Republic is a socialist dictatorship. When we said no in 1999, they said about bringing it about without our permission. In Western Australia, they produced the Acts Amendment and Repeals Court Legal Practice Act. Section 5 put in place all lawyers as officers of the court. Section 8 removed or changed the name of the Crown. The Governor now wears a dress and a tiara. Well, you would expect him to, because there's no longer Queen Elizabeth II. It was taken out and replaced with a Governor. So I would suggest he starts wearing a dress because he's a bit of a queen. But they took out the Crown out of all our laws and inserted the word the state, which is an unlawful entity. They were told at the time in Parliament they couldn't do it, but they went ahead and did it. That's Jim McGuinty and his clan. The fact of the matter is, what we've got at present is a dual government in this country. One is a socialist dictatorship, running as a total corporation, and the other is the Constitution. The Constitution is still in place, cannot be removed. Now, a lot of people don't understand when it took place. It started in 1973. In 1975, they stopped teaching the Constitution in our schools. And I think it was 1981, they stopped teaching Scripture in schools. They don't want people to know about God because this country's set up under the authority of God. It's in the Constitution. Getting a hoarse voice. Talking too much, not yet. Anyway, then they set about and they produced the Australia Act in 1986. The Australia Act, they used Section 51, subsection 38 of the Constitution. It said the states, the federal parliament has certain powers in certain areas. But they forgot to read the text that goes with it in the Annotated Constitution, because it says this section imposes no more authority on the federal parliament other than what's contained in Section 51 of this Constitution. Well, in Section 51, subsection 21, I think it is, it states, subject to this Constitution, the federal parliament has the authority to pass laws for the good government and well-being of the Commonwealth of Australia. It has no other powers, and they are limited all in Section 51 of the Constitution. The state gains their power under Section 2, subsection 1 of the state constitution. But when the state government passes a law, most people don't know what the legislative system is in this state. When the lower house of the state parliament passes a law, it is an act. It isn't an actual authoritative law. It is simply just an act. It goes then to the upper house of parliament. If they approve it, it goes to the governor. The governor does not sign it straight away. He then sends it to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which we don't have at present, but I won't go back into that. He must weigh it up against the Constitution. If it is found to be lawful under the Constitution, he must sign off on it. It then goes back to the governor, who stamps it. Now, if you look at the acts, it says, this act binds the Crown in relation to the attached matters. They still left that bit on, but they forgot the royal identifier, which has the Lion of Judah and the unicorn and the crown on top and all the shield and everything else. So, since 1973, there is no act passed in this state that is valid. That includes the Local Government Act of 1996, which is what they're using. No single act passed without a royal identifier is valid. You go through all the acts, you can go onto the government website, it's State Government Law Publishers, and go into all the acts and you'll find out it's not on any of them. It's all missing. So none of them are valid. But as I said before, the state constitution as put in place in 1900 was an invalid constitution, therefore no act ever passed in the state of Western Australia since 1900 is valid. So that'll get the attention of the court, and it does. You'll see them get upset. Now, some friends of mine and I have put in place some pretty serious stuff over the last few weeks. I'll tell you about that and I'll allow you to ask me some questions, because a lot of what I've got here is pretty deep stuff, and you don't need too much at one time or you're not going to remember it. And I want you to remember, because I want you to go out from here and do something about it. People have to get the balls to stand up and say, enough is enough. You're not having our country, you're not having our property, you're not taking our crown land. This is what I put before the Supreme Court, and that was on the 9th of August this year, 10th actually. And I've got to put my second set of eyes on to read it. This is a Prerogative Writ of Mandamus. It's issued under section 75(5) of the Federal Constitution and is a right you have. Any person can issue this writ. As you can see, it's one sheet of paper. It's very, very simple. And it states, this writ commands you, this is to Wayne Stewart Martin, the so-called Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This writ commands you to remove yourself from the Supreme Court of Western Australia for wrongly claiming to hold office under the Commonwealth, being Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Western Australia, while not having sworn an oath of allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to the third schedule to the Federal Constitution. This has the effect of creating a pretend court, because that's what it is. Or show cause why you haven't done what has been described to you. You are required to make a return to this writ by filing a notice on or before the 30th of August 2010 stating whether you have done what you are commanded to do by this writ, or stating why it has not been done. Take notice that disobeying this writ is contempt of court, which may be punished by imprisonment, fine or both. It's signed by a Justice of the Peace, And this writ under 75(5) of the Constitution, being a prerogative writ, it's the Queen's prerogative. Your right to issue it is the fact that you're sovereign. So I'm just Joe Blow off the street, an ex-cop, and I build carburettors for cars and design fuel systems, but that part is irrelevant. The fact is, I'm just an everyday person, just like you. You can do these same writs. I don't advise you to do them at present because we've got two sitting in the High Court. We've done the preliminary paperwork, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court's got a lot of problems. He's going to jail for the rest of his life.
Good.
This Friday, this full writ will be entered in by Dr. Sir John Walsh, a barrister friend of ours. He's putting it in because the High Court won't throw it back out if he does it. The issue is, Wayne Martin has to step down from the Supreme Court. He has to then prove his sworn oath of allegiance to the Crown. On several occasions, I have conned him into admitting in the court that he's sworn an oath of allegiance to the state, without telling him why he's done it and not telling anybody else. Systematically over the last 12 months I've entrapped him. Big deal, get over it. He's a criminal. A worse criminal than anybody else because he knows better. The problem is, there isn't a magistrate sitting in the court in Western Australia that's sworn an oath of allegiance to the Crown. So we didn't want to leave them out. We wanted to make them part of the system. So the day on the 10th when I handed this up to Mr. Martin, as soon as he got it in his hand, I read it to him and he said, "You have to get this order from the court." I said, "Wake up to yourself. This isn't a writ under section 33(1)(d) of the Federal Judiciary Act. This is under 75(5) of the Constitution. It's a prerogative writ." He knew exactly what I said, and he turned around and he said, "But you haven't served it on him." I said, "Well, you're not very bright because it's sitting in your left hand. For the record, you have it in your hand, so it is served on you." I then walked out from behind the bar table, around behind the fence, into the public area, and said, "I'm leaving the court. You have it in your hand, it's served." And walked out. He couldn't deny it was served, and it's all on tape. The next day I drove to Kalgoorlie, and a friend of mine handed up another writ which we previously prepared on Felicity Zemplis, the magistrate in Kalgoorlie. The one, if you've looked on YouTube, that lovely lady that says, "This is not a common law court, it sits under my authority."
Yep.
Well, sorry, you're now sitting under ours and you go to the High Court and explain to them why you did what you did and said what you did. She was sitting there teary-eyed saying, "Well, what did I do to deserve this?" Well, I said, "Well, it's on YouTube, go and have a look. You're a movie star, but you've got a problem. You're going to jail for the rest of your life." Just sitting there shaking. She is a criminal.
Australian constitutional crisis.
Yes. The issue that I'm trying to instill in people's brains is, we're sovereign. Sovereignty means you are an individual person. You can do anything you like in this country as long as it doesn't affect somebody else. And you don't break any of the laws prepared for good government. We have to sift through the laws. I understand it is very hard for a lot of you to understand the laws. Some of the laws are so complex, I like to chuck them all in the bin and start again. You can't, unfortunately. Some of the laws are good, but the majority of them are total rubbish. All your so-called acts, your so-called regulations, and these intergovernment notes they put out stating that you've got to do so-and-so and, "Oh, we've got a ruling," that's all crap. It's total lies. The council passes bylaws. Well, I've got some news for you. All the laws passed in this country by the parliaments are bylaws to the Constitution. They are subject to and must comply with it. Chapter 1, subsection 5 of the Constitution is very clear. It says, "Not all laws of the Parliament are valid. The laws passed pursuant to, in accordance with, and under the authority granted by the Constitution, and those laws only are binding on the courts, the judges and the people." We're people. The court belongs to us. The judges are our servants. Why aren't they obeying them? Because we sat back and let them get away with it. She'll be right, mate. "Oh, we'll go down and have a barbie on the weekend. Who cares about the election?" Sorry, start caring. Sorry, wake up. You mightn't know, but on the 1st of July last year, it became law in this country that when you die, your body belongs to the government. So we played funny buggers with it in Kalgoorlie, with the consent of an old guy who was dying of cancer. We distributed all his assets and everything prior to his death, so he died destitute. So when it comes to burying him, we paid for his funeral. Max did, a friend of mine, and that was at Leonora. But under the new legislation, the local council decides who buries somebody in their town. So we thought, well, that's good. He's sitting in the fridge, and he stays there until you comply with his will. Well, we're not going to do it. So he sat there from, I think it was July last year, right through until January this year. Then they buried him in Kalgoorlie. So then we got a court order and made him dig him up and take him all the way back out to Leonora and bury him where he wanted to be. That got up their nose. Rather strongly. The issue is, we have the authority. All we have to do is execute it. Just because I was a cop doesn't mean I've got any more authority than you are. I don't. When I retired medically unfit after stacking one of those two-wheel projectiles, I had to then remake my whole life. But I decided I was going to stand up and start fighting for this country. My father went to war at 16, got kicked out of the army because he was too young. When he turned 17, he went back again. He was determined to fight for this country. A lot of you, your parents died or got injured or are still suffering from the effects of the war. And so are the kids. Why aren't we getting off our backside and fighting for what they fought for? Why are we letting a bunch of half-wits sitting in Canberra who belong to some foreign, stupid societies controlling us? Why are we doing it? Because we don't have the gonads to stand up and tell them... Exactly. Well, I can't say that.
Wouldn't it be more so the knowledge than balls?
Gonads are balls, mate.
Yeah, I know.
In Geraldton, you've got GN plates. GN means you've got gonads. GNG, which is Geraldton Greenwich Shire, has got no gonads. They come up their nose at the council meeting. But the thing is, you can go to a council meeting and you stand there and say, you're not going to do that, you're going to do what we want. When you go around and you get these nice little list of names and everything, we want this done, a petition, and you hand it to your local politician, yeah, have a nice day, I'm going to look into this, as you go into the bin. And that's its value. Because you don't know your rights. Your rights are, we the undersigned people, it is our will that you do this, this and this, and then sign it. They then must do it. That's constitutional law. You've just told them your will. Who do they have to obey? You and your will. Why don't you do it? Because no one's ever told you. Now I'm telling you, next time you do one of those, you put it up exactly that way. It is the will of the undersigned people that you do this, this and this. They then must do it. If they don't, a couple of big blokes get him and belt him around the corner. Wake them up to the fact they have to do what we tell them. If you look into the Liberal Party, it has an ABN number and an ACN number. In every state in Australia, they're a corporation. Look in the Labor Party, National Party, Greens, they're corporations. Why have we got people in corporations running our country? Not doing what we want, doing what the corporations tell them. Who the hell voted for the corporations? Did you? I didn't. I was so angry I wanted to go and get my name crossed off, screw it up and throw it in the bin. I didn't. I chose to vote for an independent instead, and look at the peanuts turn out like. But I'm going to independently remove his head if he doesn't do what he's told. But the issue is, we have to start standing up. We have to stand up and be counted. We have to teach our kids. I got 5 kids to this marriage, 3 to another. They all stand up for themselves. Why? Because they're just as arrogant and ignorant as I am. But the thing is, I want them to be the controllers of their own destiny. We need to stand up for ourselves. We also need to instill in our kids the same attitude. You are sovereign. You have rights. Stand up for them. The school tells them all their rights. Your father gives you a lift under the ear, come and tell us, we'll get him locked up. And when you come home, the father will give you another lift under the ear if you're in my house. That's what happens. But hey, get over it. The fact is, we have to bring our kids up and we have to teach ourselves to stand up for your rights. That's what I want to say to you. Stand up to your rights, because not long from now you're not going to have them if you don't. You're going to lose them all. And it's fast disappearing, believe me. Go and have a look at the 270 new laws they put in place in the last week of December, just before the Christmas break. They didn't even read them. They sat there all day just signing them off. How crooked is that? How crooked is it? And how do they get away with it? Because old Joe Citizen's too worried about the presents he's buying for the mother-in-law he can't stand. It is a fact of life. We are letting our life be taken away from us by a pack of criminals. What are you going to do about it? The question goes to you, what are you going to do about it?
Buy some rope.
Yeah, well, I've got plenty. I've got a mate with crowboats, I've got about 4 tonne of it at home. I'll lend you plenty. Actually, you can have it. Alright, that's all I'm going to say. You want to ask some questions? I'll try and answer them.
Yeah, well, we need somebody like you to be the voice in court to stop all of these criminals.
I'll help you with the law.
We can support you. No worries.
I'll help you with the law. I'll help you with the cases. I am, at present, not allowed to represent anybody. I am, however, investigating the possibility with Dr. Sir John Walsh of Brunor. He's Australia's leading barrister. He's also a brilliant constitutionalist. And I run all my stuff past him before I go to court. I am negotiating with him to become a Commonwealth officer. Now, a Commonwealth officer has the same standing as a judge. I don't want to sit in court and judge. I want to go in court and fight for people. I can do that. I have no problem standing up in front of the Chief Justice and telling him he's a liar and a fraudster, and most people here who've been to the court case that I've been in know that's exactly what I say to him.
Yeah, but why can't these
He's a
people
liar.
be taken out?
Beg your pardon?
If he's a liar, why can't he be taken out there and then?
I've got a writ in the High Court, mate. I'm doing everything I possibly can to get rid of the flea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to go in there with a can of fly spray and get him. I know where he lives. I would like to go and remove him from the face of the earth. But if we become like them, then we're never going to achieve anything. We need to sort this out correctly. If it eventuates, we have to do something by force. That's in the distant. I'm not even going to discuss that, because as soon as you start getting onto that, you get cranks joining you and doing stupid things. We need to stay focused on using the law, being the Constitution, to stop idiots who think they have the right to take us over. But one person can't do it. It's no good saying, like, I get the phone call, my wife gets so irate with me because my poor old mobile has to be charged every day. It's so flat because I'm always on it. And one of these days I'm going to get something burnt off my ear because of it. The issue is I have no problem answering the questions. I have started writing papers on different issues, and some of you have seen them, some of them you haven't. I came here tonight, I don't expect anything for it. If you want to pay for some of my fuel, fine. If you don't, I don't care. I didn't come here to make money. I came here to try and encourage people to stand up for their rights. Protect their property, protect their kids and the whole family, and protect your own future.
How do you start to get to the young ones?
How do you start to get to the young ones? Sit them down.
Stop and search. You've got to tell them how they get out of stop and search. They hate it.
There is no way that the government has or can give any authority to any person to stop you and search you.
I read about those new laws in the paper.
They're absolute crap.
How do you deal with that situation?
The same way I did, but you need the Constitution to start off with, and you need a little bit of gonads, and you can get those. That's not a problem being young. You usually do things a little bit eccentrically, which is good. The last cop who pulled me over, he wanted to do a breath test, so I let him do that. I was going to be nice to him. The sergeant came up to me and said, I want to see your driver's licence. I said, the number's 1383507, it expires on the 27th of the 6th, 2014, I've got HC and R. I want to see your licence. So get over yourself. You've got a computer, go and look it up. I'm not holding your hand. So he just ignored that, and he went to my car, opened the door and started going through. I said, what the hell do you think you're doing? He said, I've got the right to search your car. I just grabbed his arm and threw him out on the ground. He said, that's assault. I said, get off the ground and you'll see what assault is. This is my car. You have no right to search it unless you have reasonable grounds to believe that I've committed any criminal offence. What grounds do you have? He went round the other side, and I got a mouthy daughter, about as mouthy as me. She turned around and said, "You try getting in here, I'm going to scream rape at the top of my voice." So he went to the back door, and he decided to fucking and she's pretty big, she would some people believe me.
But what he's saying is, a 19-year-old girl and a young kid have got no life experience, and the coppers grab them, and so we're going to do this to you. They've got no hope on the street. No
That's
hope.
If I let them find out,
That's what I was going to say. Your options is to learn the Constitution and the law, which is going to take time. In the meantime, go to Dick Smith's, and for $70 odd you get a little tape recorder. As soon as they pull you over, say, "I'm taping this." If he says you can't tape it, say, "Yes, I can. I'm sovereign, you are not. You're a servant of me. I'm taping your conversation. So you be careful everything you say, and you make sure you follow the letter of the law, because when you break it, I'm going to sue you." The fact is, they work for a company. They have an ABN number. They are a sole company, that's all they are. All their authority is under the Police Act. They're not using it, because they're not police officers. They're not a police force, they're a police service. They're a company. Their authority is issued to the police force. One of the cases we won in Kalgoorlie, the guy was charged with driving an unregistered vehicle. And I said to him, when you get the cop in the witness box, ask him to hand you up a copy of the printout of the computer of your car. And as soon as he got it, I said, then hold it up and say, "My car's registered, it's on your computer." The Act says you drove an unregistered vehicle on a road to Writ, whatever street, and it describes the vehicle at such and such a time, such and such a date. It's registered, here it is here. Licence is a tax under section 51, subsection 2 of the Constitution. I haven't paid the tax on it, boo-hoo, get over it, there's no offence. The only offence is driving an unregistered vehicle. Why am I here? The magistrate turned to the cop and said, "You better withdraw this, look at the ramifications if you don't." The fact is, I told him what the law is. You too can do the same if you go to court.
What would you say, sorry Wayne, if you're a 19-year-old kid and you're on the street and the cop says, "We're going to search you," what would you say for the tape, the young kids who watch this, do you say to a police officer?
Exactly the same thing that I told you. If you're recording it, say to the police officer, "You have no lawful right to search this vehicle unless you have reasonable belief that I've committed an offence."
And my persons.
Yeah, and your person as well.
do you ever go down the straw man kind of side and say, "Well,
No.
it's not my name"?
No.
No, it's not.
So you stick with the law.
No, I don't believe in that system. I know the system exists. I know that they're using maritime law, but if you go into their system, they're going to chew you up and spit you out. I'm not saying the
So it's
system
better to
is
say
wrong.
they've got no right at all than saying you're a different person.
Of course they have no right, but when you say that to a cop, you say, "You're a straw man, you're a fruitcake."
Yeah. That's
The issue is, we're under the Constitution. All the people are
We're all
sovereign, we're
sovereign
under the
anyway.
Constitution. Stay under it. Don't go into their maritime law. Stay out of it. Because in the maritime law, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. Under the Constitution, you are totally innocent until they prove you're guilty.
Can I add a bit to this, because
Yes.
I get the feeling there's young people here wanting to know
Yep.
a few points to use when they're pulled up, say by random breath test. Here you are at the booze bus, you pulled up.
Well, what I've got to say about that is compliance.
I'll answer my question.
Yeah, all right.
The first thing you do is you wind your window down 3 inches, no more.
Yeah.
Just enough to get a hand in so they can put the breathalyzer in to test you out. And if they demand that you open it more, you refuse it, because you don't know if they're policemen or not. This comes from civil law. You don't know if they're policemen or not, and so you demanding that you're keeping safe from them. You're not stopping them from doing what they're doing, but one of the first things you must do is you must state to them, because you then set the pattern, you state to them that you are giving them 3 minutes to do what they have to do, because you've got the right to drive on the King's Highway. And they
Under
cannot
section
stop you.
92.
Pardon?
Under section 92 of the
Under
Constitution.
section 92.
Yep. Free drive on.
And then that means that in 3 minutes' time, if they haven't finished looking you up on the computer and so on, you've got every right to drive away and they cannot stop you. and they I've tried it and it works.
I understand what you're saying, but you, like me, are grey-headed old fart and get away with a lot of things. But what you've got to understand with kids, they're crapheads. Well, you're older than me, so don't get over it. No, I'm not having a shot at you. The issue is, in reality, when you're pulled up by the police, until you understand the law a bit better, take what they say. If they say you're not taking, say yes I am, that is my right. I will comply with everything you want, do it lawfully, according to your law. Tape it, give me a yell, I'll come and have a look at it, I'll show you the pitfalls. Next time, you can correct them. It is no point in me telling you, go out there, throw it all in their face because they're going to go, come here, flea, and throw you in the back of the van. That's where you're going. And they're going to charge you with drink driving. That is stupidity. You've got to use some wisdom here. Tape it. Give me a yell. There's several other people that are starting to learn. As soon as they learn, they can do the same thing. We'll listen to the tapes. We'll tell you exactly what to say next time. This is not me telling you to disobey all the laws. I set a goal in my life to uphold the laws of this country, the lawful ones. What's crept in is a heap of unlawful laws that have to be kicked out again.
You mean admiralty law?
Admiralty law and corporate law.
Does everyone understand what that is?
Well, statutes and acts.
No.
Statutes and acts,
Yeah, well,
as opposed to laws.
well, a statute is a law that's been stamped with a royal identifier. An act that's been stamped with a royal, it becomes a statute law. It's as simple as that. I went to a council meeting in Chapman Valley, just getting off the point.
But it's not under the
explain it.
Constitution, is it?
Eh?
It's not under the Constitution.
A statute is, yeah.
Yes.
Statute is. Okay.
As long as
But
it-
an act is not. It's not a law at all. It's a proposed law by both houses of Parliament, which hasn't been approved lawfully under the
so
Constitution.
what is admiralty law that they're using?
Admiralty law is the old Roman rule of law where you're totally guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So everything when you go into court, you're guilty as charged. You then have to try and prove yourself innocent. But you also got to sit and stand and talk in honour. Now who depicts that honour? The judge. He's the captain of the ship. You go on a ship and you go out to sea and you go on the Admiralty law and see what they do. Could end up over the side and there's nothing you can do about it. The rules of the ocean are different to the rules of the land. But we're not under the rules of the ocean. We're under the rules of the Constitution. A contract between us and the Crown, which is the authority for our law. Now, if you ever get done for contempt of court, always say, I want a trial by jury. It's a misdemeanour. The Constitution says you have the authority for a trial by jury. It is your right, no one else's. They can't take it from you. They can't sentence you there and then. But if you, in the High Court last year, HCA 29 of 2009, Lane versus Morrison, at paragraph 32, it says, contempt of the court is defined in a small area. It is a disregard for the authority and the procedures of the court. The authority is the Queen, the Crown, in right of the people of Australia. The procedure is found in Chapter 3 of the Constitution, which is section 71 through 80. And that's all your rights when you go to court. A judge is simply an adjudicator or an interpreter of the law in the case that's before him, between him and the people, in the case that's before him. That's all he is. The only real person who could find you guilty in a court, in law, if you plead not guilty, is 12 of your peers. That's a jury. They are trying to say, and even the High Court, I've read some of the decisions where they said you're not always entitled to a trial by jury. Yes, you are. But there's procedures you have to go through on simple offences before you're entitled to a trial by jury. Now, if you go before a magistrate, and this is getting a little bit heavy into the law, but I will explain it. When you go before a magistrate, the police give their version, you give your version. If they can't agree, the magistrate cannot find you guilty. They are doing it. That's fraud. Fraud vitiates everything or wipes it out. That's a maximum of law or an absolute authority of law. But see, you start to get into heavy law then, that's the problem. But that magistrate, if you can't agree, if you do agree, she can say, you have found yourself guilty and sentence you. If you don't agree, she must then adjourn it to a trial by jury. They're not doing it. They decided they had the authority to change the law. But the only person under the Constitution who can find you guilty is 12 of your peers. And that's a fact of law. And it's in the Imperial Acts, it's in the Act of Habeas Corpus, which is a massive act. All these cost orders issued out of a court, they're all fraud. I know, I'm fighting them all the time. This is some of the cost orders that have been against me and I've beat them, but some of them I have to pay. But if you look at the Act of Habeas Corpus of 1679, it states that no cost order can be issued except by a jury sitting in a judicial function. No single judge can sit in judgment of any person. They're doing it. Why? Because we've allowed them to do it. That's why I said, there is a lot of complex things that you need to learn, but stop trying to learn those things now, learn the basic things. You're right. First thing, tape. We can teach you the rest. Get a copy of the Constitution. That is a must. It is a lot of money. I know. I had to scrape myself because I'm living off what I earn. And I don't get much time because I'm travelling around talking to people. But the issue is, you can't afford it. It's worth learning. It's definitely worth reading. And it is your authority over the Parliament that is there to serve you. Not themselves. Not their parties.
Could you tell us again where to get that book from, the Constitution, please?
Mart, UPMART,
Yeah.
PO Box 124,
Elwood.
Elwood, Victoria. Don't ask me what the postcode is.
I have heard it's on the internet. Some uni student put it on there. Someone did a couple of hours.
Yeah, but I believe there's sections missing out of it. Yeah, you're better off getting it there. We have been trying for a while to get a publisher here because we have had some quotes, but when we've actually gone to get it, they've either been too little.
We can actually get a soft version printed if you really want them.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap.
Just to let others know, you can get
Well, you've come to.
pen cameras.
Yeah.
They're very good. $22 on the internet.
Yeah, you can get a watch.
But
You
if
can
you get one black
A lot of phones recorded on there
because
as well.
the actual lens can't be seen. Whereas if you get a silver one, it can be seen.
Yeah.
Wear it in your pocket with lots of other pens.
Well,
So it's
there's been some
inconspicuous.
films taken in court. Now they're going to use Section 15 of the Magistrate Court Act, which has no jurisdiction anyway. I've read it, it's a load of crap. It doesn't even give them any authority to hold you in contempt of the court. How can you be held in contempt of the court filming your own personal court?
Yeah. What you do is to go through the. I won't. When you turn the camera off, I'll tell you how to get them in.
Yeah, well, that's something we will discuss out of the camera because we have had a lot of success taping in the court, including the Supreme Court, including an appeal I've got, and that's going to front up on the internet, on YouTube very, very shortly.
Oh, good.
It come across very clear. Not that I want to see my ugly mug on there, but the voiceover was as clear as a bell.
Good.
The one in the Kalgoorlie court needs some adjusting to bring up the background and reduce the front
That's
noise.
the pens. That's what the pens do.
Yeah.
They're on flash.
Unfortunately, that's a product of the pen. We don't need somebody talking up front. We need somebody talking in a different area and somebody recording it so that you get an even voice over. That's something you can discuss amongst yourselves. I do not take them into court.
Yeah, you got
Tongue in cheek.
You've got to use some skill.
The issue is, if you're taking the Supreme Court, they're going to pop you straight away. They're going to slam you in jail for 3 months. Contempt of court. It's not contempt of court. It's your court. They threatened when I was in there only a week and a half ago. The registrar threatened me that they're going to strip search everybody going in the court. I said I wouldn't even go down that road because the first time you do, you're going to get done for rape. By the way, these drug tests where they go into your mouth, that's rape. And if they try it on you, because they will try it on you, you tell them that's rape. You're entering my body without my permission. You know it's rape.
Really?
Eh?
That's a breathalyzer.
Breathalyzer's the same. They're depriving you of your liberty for stopping you. They're raping you with both those things.
Part of your body.
Is it worth saying you're operating under protest of duress, but every time if you are complying with them?
No, you just say, I will comply with what you're doing, but what you're doing is committing a criminal offence. I'm just letting you know you are raping me by putting that inside my body. You make up your mind where you're going.
It does rattle.
Oh, it does. On the tape, you read their registration number.
Yeah.
because you can put in a formal complaint about that, and they can't do anything about it.
But it really boils down to is education and numbers. That's all it is.
Well, that's it. The greater the number of us who get together and stand up to them, they'll start to listen.
So we can.
The unfortunate thing is, blokes like me are getting older. I mean, I haven't got one foot in a banana skin, the other one in a coffin yet, but I'm 62 years old and I'm not getting any younger.
You.
Who said that? Grandpa over the The thing is, we are getting older. We need to instill our ideas, our values and our thoughts into the younger generation.
That is the key, because you've got to get them in.
It's the younger ones that can make a bigger difference.
Yeah.
I'm supporting a chap by the name of Brendan O'Connell, and he's up for anti-Semitism and basically freedom of speech. He's also discovered a lot of things in the way the security is in Australia.
What, in the courts?
The security of Australia.
There isn't any.
The security is held in Israel.
Yeah.
G4S, the system in the courts, have a look on the badges of the court people at G4S, held by Verint in Israel. The Sydney trains are all held under Verint in Israel. The bus bombing in England, Verint, Israel.
They're a multinational security company that operate in this country. They are operating contrary to the Constitution, because to operate a foreign army in this country, which is what they are,
That's
you
right.
need a referendum of the people.
Yep.
That's why I said it goes back to the point that you need a large number of people to stand up and say, you're not having it. When I was in the court the other day, I deliberately stirred them up.
Can we not support you doing this? Can we not support you doing this? You said you only needed the minimum of 7
well,
people.
it's
What it is, all of us just bring a mate along next time.
That's right.
And then they bring a mate along, right?
Yeah.
If you all fronted up in the court and stood there, and every time the judge said something that was wrong, stood up and said, we don't agree, comply with the Constitution, he would tell you to get out, and you just stand up and say, excuse me, this is our court.
Yeah.
We are telling you to abide by the law. Now, for you to do that, it's not an easy thing, because you're going to be worried about getting knocked off for contempt. That's the first thing they threaten you with. You turn around and say, excuse me? Well, you're not abiding by the law, you're in contempt. I've told Wayne Martin that plenty of times. It gets up his nose. And I like getting him upset, because as soon as he gets upset, he carries on like an absolute moron. But the thing is, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not something, like, I can't do it all. It's an impossibility. And sooner or later, and I think it's sooner, they're going to try and declare me vexatious. If they do that, they're going to stop me going into the court. I need to push the issue of a public officer.
Yeah.
If I get that authority, they can't. All the issues I raise in the court are points of law. Points of the Constitution, always in law. I attack Wayne Martin and all the judges in law. While I stick to the law, I'm not vexatious. I have to be very, very careful where I step. I also, while I'm putting points to the law, irrespective of how I put them, I mean, I throw in the odd, you're a fraudster and a liar and a few other things, which I like doing because it gets his attention, makes him listen to what I'm saying, although he's a bit pretty aggro. The issue is, you have to step very, very carefully in the court. I learnt to do it through year after year in the police force going into courts. It is not an easy thing. I can teach people, I am teaching a whole group of people at present, and they are having success. They're starting to stand up for themselves, both in Geraldton, Kalgoorlie and a few other places. But it needs other people like me, but there isn't any. So I'm training this group, and hopefully they'll spread out and train others. It has to be a domino effect.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're all going to have to be able to walk into court and say, excuse me, these are my rights. Now you comply with them. Because that's what the judge is supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
They sit up on their little bench right up high like little gods, but they're not. They actually should be sitting below you because they're actually your servant. And this is what people can't understand.
But they'll tell you that it's their court.
Yeah, well, as soon as they tell you it's your court, like Wayne Martin, the last time he said that to me was the last time he said it. I stood up and I said, excuse me, this is our court. It's not yours at all. You are our servant. Act like it. Start doing what we tell you. It's all here in the book.
Yeah,
Why
well,
buy this book? That's what tells you what to do. Now do it.
you got to take that in with you, basically.
I take it in every time.
Yeah, yeah.
I tell you what, they're scared of the Bible too, mate. I said, that's the best way to scare the hell out of them. Well, I had a 4-day trial last year, and I put that one side of the thing where I sat and that the other side, and I left it there the whole time. They lifted this and cleaned under it, and all my other books and everything, and they never touched this. It was all dusty underneath it when I finished. They're scared of the Bible. Grown men scared of a book. What back of please.
Could you tell me what your phone number is, please?
0428
Yeah.
38 22 97 or 99
Yep.
38 22 97. That's a phone fax. Hey?
You got cards?
No. The email address is stickett.
What is?
Stickett, STICKETTE at westnet.com.au. Stickett because I'm called Sticky, my wife's called Stickett, and the kids are called Twigs. Starting a new branch for the family and all that crap. Yeah, right. Heard it all before. Yep.
Right. I've been looking at the notices and sending notices to, I was going to start with the council, and just basically ask them for particulars on, do they have the authority under the Constitution, etc.
Are you got property?
No, I don't.
You don't.
I just want to, as a starting point, I just want to sort of...
Your parents own a property?
No, no.
Well, the first thing anybody can do, like you can't do it because they're not contracting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Your rates notice actually is a contract. They send it out to you. You don't argue the value. You don't argue their authority on the rates notice. What you do is, well, I drive pig backside on it with a texter and send it back to them because I like upsetting them. It makes them sue me and then I can get it back at them in the court again. But I don't envisage you just want to upset them that much. You can ask them for a full detailed account of what services they've afforded to you to cover the value that they're charging.
Yeah.
And under corporate law, which they're under, they must answer that in detail.
Yeah.
They'll come back with all sorts of bull dust, send it back and say, I want a detailed account. I want to know what days you provided this so-called service. I'll give you a perfect example. The councils get paid to cart your rubbish away. They get a grant from the federal government. They get a grant from the federal government to do all the work on their roads.
Yeah.
The government is saying, oh, well, you get it off the people through rates and we can pocket a bit more money and send it to our friends overseas, but that's not on. They're going to have to go back to using the tax out of consolidated revenue to do all the things that they're supposedly doing now. The issue is, up our way, Colex collect our bin.
Yep.
They pay Colex 33 cents per bin per week. That doesn't add up to $176 they want me to pay. I've never paid it and I'm not about to collect my bin. And when they didn't pick it up, I just put it on the back of my truck, went round to the council, lifted it down, wheeled it up to their door, turned it upside down, went back and put the bin on and went home again. Well, the cops turned up an hour later and said, you've got to go and clean it up. I said, no. They received a sum of money off the federal government to dispose of my waste. They refused to pick it up. They've now got it. They can dispose of it. I don't care. I suppose I'm a little bit arrogant when it comes to that. But the fact is, they're paid to provide the service. If they don't do it,
Well, what I was asking,
I don't mind dumping it on their lawn.
if I write a notice and say, do you have this authority to charge me for registering my dog, for example?
They don't.
Well,
Does your dog drive a car?
do I?
Well, why are you licensing it? My dog doesn't drive a car. They're not licensed. I've got 4 of them.
If I send the 3 copies and get it witnessed, etc., does that then create a contract saying that they have no authority?
Yeah, we ask them, can you please provide the information, the lawful authority to charge you.
Well, I can tell you exactly what they're going to write back. They're going to write back under the Local Government Act of 1976 or 1996. This section, we have the right to charge you for licensing your dog. This pays to pay for our rangers.
Yeah.
And you're going to get in a long drawn out argument about nothing. Just don't register your dog.
Well,
The last time a ranger come to my place and he said, your dogs aren't registered, I said, gee, you're pretty observant. I said, tell you what, when you see them drive out the gate, you give them a licence, till then piss off, get out. They don't drive cars, they don't need a licence. I don't need to pay a tax on my dog. It is my land. I decide who resides on my land. I've got 34 frigging goats, which I breed for eating, and I've got a horse. Why? Next they want me to pay tax on them too? I don't think so.
The methane gas.
Don't get me in the global warming, that's the biggest load of crap. I studied physics and science, maths, English and electronics. It's all a lie. Believe me, an absolute lie. And I'm not going to get into that
there is
argument.
a tacit agreement, yeah.
Well, look, the thing is, if you buy a dog and it's not licensed, don't license it.
He's not.
No, I wouldn't license it.
What you're saying is try not to use the system.
Yeah, stay out of the system as much as you can.
Just stay sovereign.
Comply to stop getting prosecuted unnecessarily until such time you get the knowledge to fight them.
Yeah. That's sort of why I'm trying to, as a starting point,
Yeah.
they're not, as opposed in the past I've gotten traffic fines and I've written back different things and it's just cost me a shitload of money. It's been a bad idea because I don't know.
You don't write to them because you're accepting that they have the authority to issue them. Section 28 of Magna Carta says no penalty can be issued prior to going to court. Chapter 3, Section 76 on the Constitution, page 791 says exactly the same
Well, if you
thing.
ignore them, it's not helping much.
No, Aussie.
No, but this is what I'm saying. You've got to learn your Constitution. Section 51, subsection 24 of the Constitution says no penalty can be issued to any person when they're not present in the court. What the hell do you think the fines enforcement are doing? They're taking your licence off you. The council is sending their bills in, they're taking your licence off you. But if you read Lane versus Morrison, I suggest you download that and have a good read of it. You'll understand that every judicial function is a court. And it states whether it's quasi-judicial, which is administrative, or straight administrative, is irrelevant. It is a court. And every court must sit under Chapter 3 of the Constitution, which means it must have a judge and jury, or 2 judges, or 2 magistrates. When I first joined the police force, we had a magistrate and 2 JPs sit on the bench because the magistrate couldn't sit alone.
Yeah.
Why do they do now? Because we just let them do it. They can't lawfully sit, but they do.
So if you went into court and there was only a magistrate there and you said, hang on, I'm not having this court here because there needs to be 2 of you up there.
He's going to say, shut up, or you're going in the can.
No, but I'll say, hang on, it says this in the Constitution.
He doesn't care.
And
He
so,
said,
so then he
I'll
puts
tell
me
you
in the
what they
can.
say, because the egghead up where we are turned round to my friend the other day and said, the Constitution has no authority in this court. And he said, well, that doesn't, you don't.
So,
And what he did, he said, well, I'm not going to adjourn this. He said, I'm going to remand this case, and you're going inside and you can sign yourself out the bail, so you can spend the next 2 hours sorting out your bail. That's what he did to him.
and what about if I've got 7 mates behind me, all standing up at the same time saying, no,
Don't go down that issue, especially if you're in the magistrate's court anywhere in Perth. You're going to end up inside.
well, I don't mind going inside for a couple of hours.
I'm not saying that. You're better off fighting your issues outside jail. Look, if this writ of Mandamus goes through, which we know it's going to, we're pushing it through. Every person, there's no cost on a writ of Mandamus. It's a prerogative writ, and it's a right under the Constitution. They can't charge you. That's why they're resisting it. But the issue is, you can go and do it. It's a simple form, and it requires a 1-page affidavit, which is basically says, in this case, Justice Wayne Martin was sworn in on this date and swore an oath of allegiance to the state and not the Crown. That's all you need in the affidavit. Now, none of the magistrates have sworn an oath of allegiance to the Crown. You go on the net and go on the Magistrate Court Act. It's all there for you, and it gives the oath. An oath of allegiance to the state. There's no such lawful entity as the state. The state is the people. The Commonwealth is the people. Commonwealth is the common wealth of the people.
Yeah.
I'll get started in banks, but you can leave that to another night because that's very involved. But the issue is, you have to learn the law. Start with the Constitution and learn it. Give us a ring. I'll tell you what pages to look up quickest to reference it for just general use. Because there are some quick ones, but Chapter 3 is the best one to learn. That's the Judiciary. Deals with everything to do with the court. Everything. And the rights you have. And if in the annotated constitution there's something like about, I think about 140 pages on chapter 3. There's a hell of a lot of reading, but it intricately describes every single thing and what it means. The framers of the Constitution spent a hell of a lot of time explaining how this came about. They reference case law in Canada, America, because they're all colonies of England. Even though America claims to be a republic, it's not. They didn't win the war. They lost. Go back and have a look at the history. They lost.
Yeah.
It's still a colony of England.
Did it take 10 years to write it?
The Constitution? Yeah, 10 or 12, yeah. It was written by about 14 or 15 blokes, and they had conferences in every state or every colony.
That's what you call framers, the blokes that write it.
Yeah, they framed it, but Dr. Quick and Sir, what we call it, Garran, can't think of his name, I hate names anyway, but they wrote this as it happened. And then they wrote the whole lot and they had it printed up. They took it out of the old English into common English, that's all it is. And it's very, very easy to understand. Some of it is very intricate, but if you get stuck, I can help you to a degree. I don't say I know everything about it, I don't. I can remember large portions of it because I've got an IQ of 176 and I remember almost everything I read. And that is the biggest pain in the arse you could have, believe me. Sometimes you walk down the street and you remember something you said to someone 20 years ago and you get all embarrassed because it was pretty stupid what you said and they don't even know who you are anymore. And you feel a proper fool then. But it is not very good having that kind of a memory, believe me. Sometimes it is, but not all the time.
Do you have a break?
Yeah, have a Kit Kat.